Where do you go to find yourself? I think that's such a great question. And somebody posed that question a few days ago in my meditation group. And what a wonderful inquiry to find out where we actually go to find ourselves. And how do we know that we have found ourselves? Who do we find? Or what do we find? Where do you go to find yourself? You know, the one that you know so well, the one that has a lot of repetition every day. It's very familiar. You know your emotions, your thoughts, your actions, your daily life routines. That is where most of us go when we try to find ourselves or go looking for ourselves or go back to something that we can relate to and refer back to. And it is a real experience. It is, right? If I go like, oh, Pernilla, yeah, oh yeah, Pernilla. And then there's a whole feeling and landscape and quality and expression that comes with that. So it's very familiar, and that is where most of us live our life from, as if that is who we are. And we kind of miss who we really are. So when I'm going to use the word suggestions again. I talked about that recently. Like, for instance, the part of us that believes that you're not good enough. Very common flavor of ourselves that we can always find. It's like, oh yeah, there I am. Yeah, there I am. Yeah, I know that one really well. And then we act from that and we move into the world from that energy as if that truly is who we are. And what a shame. It's like it's a whole structure. And the way I'm experiencing it, it is that suggestion, a hypnotic suggestion. You may not know that, or you may not use that term. That might not be familiar to you. It is for me. I've used it because of my background in spirituality with Joel Goldsmith. That was a very common term he used, that all these things that are coming to us are hypnotic suggestions. And here, I think, is what is really important about this if we want to start separating ourselves from it. I did a little video about it recently called Don't Touch It. And I think I also talked about it as have no reaction to it. And that's very, very difficult because it's all wrapped up in this whole structure. And so the reaction is part of the structure, and the touching it is part of the structure. So in a way, I want to say, can we pull back? Can we pull back enough so we can become aware of our reactions and our patterns and our habitual behavior? Is it possible just to step back a little bit and observe it for a moment? So in order to do that, you can't touch it, because the thing is, as soon as you touch one of these suggestions, you engage with it. And I'm just going to use this metaphor. It's as if you open yourself up to it, and this energy, this suggestion rushes in through your belief, through your acceptance of it or touching it. So it rushes in and it impacts all your senses. it's experienced in your felt sense in your body, and it's not comfortable when there are these really nasty ones like we talked about the other day. So the trick is, how do you not touch it? How do you not react to it? And it is possible, and this has been a practice of mine for a long, long time because of Joel Goldsmith. And I find it probably the most important one because we are able to step back and choose. We can choose to engage or not. We can choose to touch it or not. But knowing that when you touch it, you open up the gates, and this whole suggestion of, for instance, I'm not good enough, it just floods in, and here you are. And the more you experience it in your body and through your senses, the more real it becomes. And that's why when we have let it in, and it feels more real than anything, right? When you feel it in your feelings and your emotions and in your senses, there's tightness and buzzing and discomfort. It feels so real. So you don't really have a choice than to do something about it, right? And what we normally do about it is fight it, suppress it, or express it, whatever way it fits for our identity, the one we find when we look for ourselves. And that is where we can make a switch. Instead of resisting it, we can create a space of allowing it to be there. Because when you resist it, you're touching it and you're reacting to it. So one really powerful way to get out of it is by allowing it. You allow maybe the suggestion by not engaging in it. It's like when you allow it, you're not doing this, and it can float right by you because you're just kind of like, oh yeah, please pass by. If it has come into your body, if you have touched the belief and believe it and engage with it, then you will start feeling it in your body. And that's where it gets harder to step back and not touch it. Once it's in there, it takes a little more work, Then you need to start allowing the sensations, the discomfort, the whole story that goes with it. So it's creating a space around it by allowing it. That is a way to disengage from it. That is a way to not touch it. So when you do that, you will be able to breathe into the sensations without the grasping or touching it. It's just like, okay, yeah, it's uncomfortable, but I can breathe through it. I can actually be present with it. And the more we do that, the more that whole structure that came from this hypnotic suggestion starts dissolving. And that is where a lot of changes can happen. And I think it's a very important step on our spiritual journeys, because once we have unhooked, stopped touching it, engaging with it, then we can start becoming aware of, well, what is here? When my attention is not all there doing my thing, and I just allow it, then we can start leaning back and find out, well, there's something in me allowing that. And that's when we can turn the energy that we have liberated from the fighting, resisting, liking, not liking, that energy, we can turn back. It's like, okay, so I'm just allowing, I'm aware of it. And that's when we can drop in to this sensation or experience. I don't know what word to use, but what is here when that is not there? So when you look for yourself and you find yourself, this whole structure, that's usually where we dance around and swirl around and get lost in. So little by little, as we unhook from that, there is still something here, right? It's not like I'm gone because I'm not engaging with this. There is still some kind of an awareness, consciousness, presence. That is, of course, who I am. And that is where I put my attention on as much as I can. You know, of course, I get distracted with work and, you know, dealing with life. That's fine. We are here for a reason. But then at a certain point, more and more, I can just go, oh, yeah, I can let that go. And what happens then here is that I'm in the flow. I'm in that divine flow. And that is effortless. And that's something I can rest back into when I have my awareness back, liberated from the outside. So then, like, oh, and then I'm going to speak my favorite little sentence. You can join me. I am deeply relaxed in the effortless flow and fulfillment of God's loving grace. That is a really beautiful place to park our attention. Out here, it's struggle and strife. There's nothing that's effortless about it. And you may have noticed that, right? We're out there struggling like maniacs, not knowing that that flow is here all the time. And all we really need to do is to go there and let it take us. And that is definitely a process to start trusting it. That's why I suggest just doing a little bit at a time, but at least get a feeling of that flow inside of you. And it's your own I. It's the one you call I all day long. But we put something behind the I, our name, our title, our gender, our job, whatever it is. So when we let go of that and don't look for ourselves there, what is here? And you just take a nice little dip into that flow right now. And know, eventually, we'll all know that this is where everything comes from, and there's no struggle in it. It's just a habitual pattern that we have all bought into, a habitual suggestion, hypnotic suggestion that we have all been hypnotized to believe. So maybe this can be our little dehypnotizing suggestion, to just say no, like no. And then see what happens.